single creepy encounter that you will hear tonight will feature a very creepy lady. So sit back, relax, 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 and get ready to be spooked. With that being said, and of course, as always, without any further ado, let's get into tonight's stories, shall we? So, the first story was originally posted by a Reddit user called Thezombiemedic. Their story is called Absolute Horror. I'm a paramedic and I have been for about 10 years. Working in emergency medicine, you get to see the weirdest and the worst of people. So it's not too uncommon for these types of stories to exist. However, in my 10 years, I have never experienced pure terror incarnate like I had about 6 years ago. I will not be revealing any specifics or identifying details as it pertains to privacy and HIPAA. About 6 years ago, I moved to another city for work. I worked for a 911 ambulance service that responds to calls in the city as well as the county, which had a few other small towns. The city itself was not a large city. It was under 100,000 people. Now, working for that service required working 24-hour shifts. That's harsh. Now, it wasn't particularly busy. You'd maybe get like 5 to 10 calls in 24 hours and generally get some decent sleep at night. Well, that makes it a little better, I guess, but still, 24-hour shifts. I mean, that sounds rough. Now, this city was a pretty rough place, as the oil industry had boomed there, which drew all sorts of folk from around the country to work in the oil fields nearby. One night in January, me and my partner, who was an EMT basic, received a call in the next town over. It was around 2 a.m. when the call came out, and the only information we had was that a person in an apartment had called 911 after hearing the downstairs neighbor screaming for help. We responded emergent, as the details were very limited. When we arrived on the scene, police and fire department were already there, and we were getting ready to make entrance into the building with them. The person who called 911 was there and told us which apartment she heard the screaming from. We attempted to pound on the door at first to get the resident to come to the door. When no one answered, the fire department got ready to spread the door and make entry. Luckily, the landlord showed up and gave us keys to get into the unit. Wow. I mean, you gotta remember they got a call at like 2 a.m. and the landlord shows up. Must be a night owl. Now, as we opened the door, the creepiness started. The apartment was pitch black. Not a single light, as if no one was home. Police entered first, and with our flashlights, we followed. Looking around the apartment, the kitchen and dining room looked like a hoarder's nest. I'm not exaggerating when I say there were literally 5-foot-tall mountains of garbage / food / dishes in the kitchen, and the same in the living room, but with magazines, clothes, and garbage. bad, like when people live in those conditions, and often like it gets so out of hand that they don't know where to start with like cleaning it up, or like sometimes they just don't care, you know. Now this meant that there was only a very narrow walkway to navigate the apartment. The officers proceeded down the hallway ahead where the bedroom and bathroom was. One of the officers stopped at the bathroom door as there was light shining from underneath. The officer opened the door and just stood in the hallway. With a flat tone, he said, "She's in here." So I walk into the bathroom first. The first thing I notice is the peculiarity of the light in the bathroom. It's a very pale yellow light coming from a single bulb on the ceiling, similar to those old heat lamps that used to be common in bathrooms. The light gave off an odd vibe as it was just such unnatural light. The next thing I noticed is a lack of anything in the bathroom. No floor mats, no toilet cover, no towels, no knickknacks, just nothing. Empty. Except the vanity, which contained the sink. On top, in the bowl of the sink, were approximately 20 to 30 makeup bottles piled up. Some were open and leaking, causing there to be powders and liquids everywhere. The last thing I noticed was the body of an elderly woman lying naked in the tub. As I walk closer, I can see her lying on her side, almost in a fetal position. Her skin is pale and there is about 8 inches of water in the tub. Looking at her face, her eyes are closed and her head is against the bottom of the tub, with her mouth and nose completely submerged in water. My partner steps in behind me. He suggests we call the coroner and inform them of the body. 2 officers pile into the bathroom behind my partner so that there is 4 of us in this tiny bathroom, with me next to the lady in the tub. With me being who I am, I decide to do my due diligence and at least make sure the lady is dead. I kneel down next to the tub and I reach my arm in and put my fingers on her neck in an attempt to search for a pulse. Now, in an instant, without warning or the slightest hint of movement, the woman springs up out of the tub with the agility and speed of a feral cat. What the hell? Now the only reaction I was able to manage was to just stand up as quick as possible, and I just stood there staring at her. She stared back at me, eyes wide as can be, before she started screaming at me. She attempted to cover herself with her hands as best as she could while sitting in the water still. I quickly look around and I notice that everyone else who was in the bathroom with me had bolted out of there. Not a single soul in sight. Wow, brave. Those brave police officers. I try to compose myself and I also try calming this lady down, telling her who I was and why I was there. Now she denied screaming and she said that she does this every morning as she has some kind of joint condition and soaking in warm water helps ease her joint pain. Now let's not forget it's 2 a.m, maybe 3 at this point. That's not the morning, lady. That is the middle of the night. Now at this point I have my doubts and I have to question this woman's sanity. I question her regarding self and address what potentially could be interpreted as suicidal behaviour. She denies all of it. Now the next step is to determine her mental capacity to ensure she is in the right frame of mind to make reasonable and appropriate decisions. She answered all my other questions appropriately, and at this point, as per the law, she is able to refuse any and all care as she is mentally sound. I ask her if she will at least allow me to check her vitals so that I can be sure she is healthy and I can add it to my report. She refuses and tells me to get out of her house, which, she has a right to do. I acknowledge and have her sign a refusal of service form. As I leave the bathroom, my partner, the two officers that were in the bathroom with me, along with two other officers and firefighters that were waiting in the apartment, are just staring at me with eyes wide and gaping mouths, speechless. I don't say a word and we all leave the apartment. Once we all got outside, I had the most uneasy, uncontrolled fit of laughter. My partner and the officer start laughing too. I thought I might have shit myself. My partner told me later that all he remembers is seeing her move, hearing me say, "Oh f***," which I don't even remember, and running out of the bathroom. I wish I could say I never saw this lady again, but that would be untrue. See, what's weird to me, no, actually, several things are weird to me, obviously. The obvious weird thing is, why was that lady fully submerged in the water of the bathtub? She didn't realize people were in her house, right? So she must have been fully submerged for a while. Like, how does she do that? Can she just hold her breath for an insane amount of time? Or can she breathe underwater? Did she eat gillyweed? Like, this is very confusing to me. Like, how did she do that? And then the only thing that made her move was when the officer, touched her neck to check for a pulse. Not the officer, the OB did that actually. Sorry. But as if that, got her out of a trance of some sort. How can you not notice that there are people in your apartment for several minutes because they checked the kitchen, the living room first? She must have been fully submerged in the water for that whole time, which just does not make any sense to me whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense unless this woman has superpowers. What else is weird is that she answers all the questions appropriately, and according to the OB, she is mentally sound, okay? But the OB says at the end, "I wish I never saw this lady again," but that would be untrue. That is because there is a part 2 to this story, which I am not gonna read, because the lady sadly does pass away. She passes away, which makes me question again her sanity in this encounter. So that is weird that she managed to either convince the OB that she was mentally sound, or that she was actually mentally sound, but then a few weeks later, it is a very strange situation, and one I would not like to be in. Being a health professional in any way would not be something for me, especially emergency medicine. No. I don't So the next one was originally posted to Reddit by a user called MooBig48. Their story is called Creepy Old Woman Hitching a Ride. Now this happened a couple of years ago at work. I'm in the automotive industry and our shop has kind of a weird setup. Our shop at the bottom of a dead-end road and the office about a block up on a major street. Therefore, I have two offices, one upstairs, one downstairs. So I was in my upstairs office one day and we were busy. And my boss called me and told me that they needed me downstairs as soon as possible. Having a bad hip, I usually drive and I don't walk. So I got into my car, I shifted into reverse, and suddenly there is a knock on the window of my van. And I kid you not, it is one of the oldest human beings that I have ever seen. She had to have been a centenarian. She was ancient, unbelievably wrinkled, covered in liver spots, but with these absolutely ice blue eyes that looked like they also had cataracts. Very well and smartly dressed, mind you, expensive clothing, a black suit, a coat, and a rolly suitcase. Why do they always have a rolly suitcase? Now she had long wispy hair and basically the classic definition of a hag. So I roll down my window and she starts gesturing like the universal signs for deaf and mute. She pulls out a notepad and writes deaf, need write to Max, our local light rail. Well, as I mentioned, we were super busy and my boss had requested my presence, so I'm trying to tell her I can't. I'm at work and we are busy, hoping she could read lips or something. Now she literally had tears in her eyes and grabbed the pad again and she wrote 6 blocks. Again I tried to tell her that I couldn't, and she turned away from me and her scrawny old shoulders started shaking and I realized that she was flat out crying. So I'm like, F it. I guess I gotta give great-great-grandma a ride or my karma will be short for the rest of my life. Or she's gonna put a curse on my whole family or something. So I called my boss and I quickly explained what was up and that I'd be back in like 10 minutes. Now I got out of my van and got the stuff out of the passenger seat and tapped her on the back. And she turned around and I gestured to my van and she smiled through her tears and mouthed, "Thank you." Sure, I was doing a good deed. I put her rolly suitcase in the back and her in the passenger seat and I headed east. Mouthed, "Can you show me where you want out?" And she nodded. 6 blocks, remember? So I headed east. She's looking out my passenger window and I drive 6, 9, 12 blocks. I forget she's deaf and mute and I say, "Hey, are we close?" And this bitch does not miss a beat. She says, "Oh yep, hang her right here and I'll hop on out." she had just asked, right? So that is strange. I mean, you see those kind of scams like all the time, people pretending to have some kind of handicap and then trying to get you to give them money and like sign your name on a shady list, right? So, I mean, at first I was like, maybe it's one of those kind of things, but it can't be, because at no point did this woman ask for money. She just wanted a ride, and then she just jumped out of the car and skipped away. Like, I mean, that it's just so strange, and I don't have a rational explanation for it. I can't think of any reason. I can't think of anything that makes sense as to why she would do this. I mean, a weird sense of humor, like very weird, because I don't see how this is funny in any way. I mean, unless there was a hidden camera and the Redditor ended up on YouTube somewhere. I really can't think of a reasonable explanation. This is wild. This is wild. Like, I mean, your heart would skip a few beats, right, when you're in that car and this old, deaf and mute woman suddenly starts talking to you. I mean, I know I would be scared. Wow. Oh well, on to the next one, I guess. Alrighty, so the next story was originally posted by a Reddit user called ONUJ09. Their story is called Scary Woman Smiling at Me Through the Window. This incident happened a few years ago when I was in my early 20s. I had moved out of my parents' place just a couple months prior into a small one-bedroom apartment. I lived there by myself since I was never really a roommate type person, and I didn't have a boyfriend at the time. It was on the first floor of a 150-year-old building. It was beautiful, it was well maintained, but definitely had a few issues, like uneven floors and crooked doors. I still loved it though, especially since it had an oriel window. I think that's how you say that. I don't think I know what that is. Hold on while I Google it. Okay, so it is an oriel window, and what it actually is one of those bay windows that protrudes from the wall from the outside. So that's really pretty, actually. Okay, so it had an oriel window in the bedroom that overlooked a little park. Now, the apartment was located in, let's call it, a not so great part of town. Crime rates were very high, and there was a lot of drug trafficking and burglaries in an otherwise very safe city. I still never felt truly scared or unsafe when I was walking home. I always stuck to the very basic rules of how not to get abducted or killed, like not walking through parks at night and not wearing headphones and all that stuff. Very good. Now, one evening in May, I went to a friend's house for dinner about a mile away from my place. At around 1:30 a.m, I decided to leave and walk the short distance home. Since I'd had some wine, I didn't feel comfortable driving, and I left my car back there to pick it up the next morning, which is also wise. Very good. Now, the streets were really quiet. It was a cool night on a weekday, so I didn't see a single person for almost the entire walk. Unfortunately, that changed when I reached my apartment building. I was still a few yards away when I saw a random woman standing in front of the door, pressing seemingly random buttons on the intercom. Now, there were only about 5 apartments in my building, so I knew all of the tenants, and she certainly wasn't one of them. She wore a shabby beige jacket, and her hair looked like it hadn't been brushed in a while. She seemed a little disoriented, and something about her gave me very uneasy feelings. It might have been the way she moved, a little slower than a regular person perhaps, or maybe I was just paranoid because it was the middle of the night. Now, I decided to take a little detour around the block, hoping she would be gone by the time I got back. When I turned around into my street again, she was still there, and she was still pressing buttons on the intercom. Now, I crossed the road thinking she would probably not even notice me if I walked on the other side of it. However, she did notice me when I was still a couple yards away from her. She stared at me for a few seconds and then started slowly walking towards me. I am picturing something like, something from It Follows. Now, so she sees the Redditor, she stares at the Redditor and starts slowly walking towards them. Now, at this point, I get seriously freaked out and just ran past her to my building, unlocking the door and pushing it closed as fast as I could. I ran up the stairs to my apartment, went in and immediately locked the door behind me. I started to calm down a little and felt silly, thinking that I overreacted about a slightly confused person not doing anyone harm. Now, I went to my bedroom window to see if she was still out there, and when I drew back the curtains, I almost screamed. She was standing right beneath my window, looking up at me with the creepiest and unsettling smile I've ever seen. Why always with the smiling? It freaks me out. It freaks a lot of you out. I can tell by these stories, like, what's up with the smiling? Now, I panicked, and after freezing for a few seconds, I went to get my phone and I called the police. When I came back to the window, she was gone. I couldn't see where she went, since trees were blocking the view of most of the street. A few minutes later, I saw the police car. They were circling the block 2 or 3 times, but I don't think they found her. Thankfully, to this day, I've never seen her again, and I have moved to a safer part of town since. Her creepy smile still gives me the chills when I think about it. It would be burnt onto your retina. Like, you would never forget that. I hope we never meet again, lady. I hope so too. What? See, I don't think this Redditor overreacted. Firstly, what was that woman doing in the middle of the night, pressing all the buttons on the intercom? The only reason I can think of for her doing that is something that they used to do a lot when I lived in a flat, right? So people would like you can buzz somebody in if they don't have a key. So they would literally sit there and try every single doorbell to get buzzed into the building, to then try and find a flat that's open where they can, rob the owners or something. That used to happen. And when I was living in a flat, I never used to let anyone in. Like, I would get, like, the intercom would go off and I would pick up, because it'd be like a phone kind of thing. And I'd pick up and I'd hear the person who rang the doorbell, I'd hear them say like that they were from maintenance or from the water company or the electric company, and I just told them no. I wasn't going to be the one to let them in, right? I wasn't going to be the one to let them in. And I feel like if the water company or the electric company was actually going to come, they would have probably put a letter in our letterbox telling us about it, right? Of all the, all the tenants, right? So that's the only thing I can think of for the reason as to why she was pressing all the buttons on the intercom. But for her to then, firstly, look the Redditor straight in the eye and start walking towards her slowly, like It Follows style, that is wild, like highly creepy. But how did she know what apartment was the Redditor's to stand right underneath the window and laugh at her and smile at her creepily? Why? How did she know which apartment to stand under? Like, that is wild. And like I said, what is up with her smiling? At this point, I feel like you're just doing it on purpose to scare people. Wow. I know I said that maybe we were going to do 4 stories, but it doesn't look like we're going to have time for it tonight. I've ordered a second battery because my camera can only go so long, right? Without, dying. But it hasn't arrived yet. So we've got to kind of stick to a limited amount of recording time. But that should be better in the future. You guys, that means that was it for tonight's Scary Stories. If you like this, make sure to leave a comment down below. If you want to see more scary stories starring women, let me know. Make sure to give this video a like, and if you like what you saw, make sure to subscribe.